Gaslamp Twilight presents The Fifth Trait, Part 1.
We were all shaped by the way we processed reality. I see that now, clear as stars over a silent lake, clearer than I ever did when we were laughing around that fire. Before the fog rolled in, before the fifth seat was taken, there were four of us, best friends since childhood, same small school, same broken streetlights, same scratched-up bike trails through the canyon. But how we saw the world, that was always different. Leo was the thinker. His mind was a blueprint, everything logical stacked in neat rows. His backpack always had a compass, a journal, and backup batteries. Leo didn't just plan, he forecasted. He believed the right equation could map any chaos, even pain. When his mom left when we were 13, he made a chart, 3 columns. What happened, what should have happened, and what I'll do next time. He never cried, not once. But I think that was his version of it. Maya was the feeler. She read emotions like sheet music, could walk into a room and know who was pretending. She kept us close, even when we wanted space, said the right words when we didn't even know what we needed to hear. Maya always asked how we felt, even when it pissed us off, especially when it pissed us off. In high school, when I was in love with someone I never told, Maya just hugged me out of nowhere and said, "I know." She never said how she knew. I think she just did. Dante was the censor, boots on the ground, hands in the dirt. If you couldn't taste it, touch it, bleed from it, it wasn't real. He was the kind of guy who checked the lock twice, not because he didn't trust it, but because it gave him peace. When his brother died in that crash, Dante didn't talk. He rebuilt the engine, took the same model car and spent 3 months fixing it, piece by piece. He never drove it, still hasn't. Said it runs fine though, said it's not about the drive. And me? I guess I was always the intuitive, the one chasing constellations through conversations. I never liked instructions, but I could see the shape of something before it was built. I loved the part where you didn't know where it was going yet. When I dream, it's not dreams, it's blueprints in fog. Feelings first, meaning second. They used to joke I was the idea guy, and I was. Still am, I guess. But when I had the idea for the camping trip, one last weekend, just us, no phones, no obligations, it felt necessary. Not a getaway, a convergence. Like something was waiting to happen. We rented this glass cabin in the mountains. Airbnb said it was off-grid but optimized for deep creativity. That was the hook. A place to finally build something together. A product, a platform, a project. Didn't matter. Just flow state. 4 perspectives, 1 purpose. We hadn't done anything like that since we were kids. We arrived late Friday. Fog hugged the trees like it was hiding something. Maya said it felt old, like the air had memory. Dante walked the perimeter twice before unloading. Leo checked the blueprints online, said the cabin's layout was functionally absurd. I just looked at the shadows and felt something else was here, something that had been waiting. But the first night was magic. We cooked, talked for hours, laughed like we used to, like the world hadn't worn us down yet. There was flow, real flow, ideas bouncing between us like sparks, a perfect rhythm. Leo said, "Let's build something real, something scalable." Maya added, "Let's make sure it heals people." Dante, "And let's make sure it works." I said, "Let's make sure it matters." We went to sleep believing we were building something beautiful. But that's the thing about creation. You don't always get to choose what you bring to life. Somewhere between the fire going out and the generator clicking back on, there were 5 mugs on the table, not 4. We thought it was a joke at first. Maybe Maya made tea for later. Maybe Leo was hydrating. But no one remembered making that 5th mug. It was just there. Ceramic. Still warm. That was the first sign. And that's when I felt it. That strange sense you get when you're being watched. But the eyes aren't human. Not angry. Not curious. Just hungry. We weren't alone anymore. The next morning, it started small. Leo woke up before us naturally. He'd already whiteboarded our project flow across 3 sheets of butcher paper taped to the cabin windows. Time is money, he said. Let's design before we ideate. Classic Leo. Dante brewed the coffee. Real percolator, cowboy style. Told me if I ever drank from a Keurig again, he'd disown me. Maya hummed while making breakfast. Barefoot, cinnamon in the oats, asking everyone how they slept but not saying how she did. And me? I watched the fog from the deck. Still didn't lift. Still didn't feel like morning. That's when the shift started. Leo noticed first. He stared at his whiteboard, frowning. This isn't what I wrote. I looked. It was his handwriting. But the words were off. Disjointed equations, crossed out headers, a phrase underlined 3 times. None of this adds up. He said maybe he was tired. Maybe the altitude was messing with his focus. But I saw something behind his eyes, a flicker of panic, and Leo never panics. Later that day, we tried to sync up. Maya led a grounding circle before the brainstorm, held our hands, closed her eyes, said, "Let's set intentions." We all went quiet. She squeezed my hand mid-meditation and whispered, "Someone else is holding me." I opened my eyes. Dante was on one side, me on Toynan, but her grip had tightened on both sides. She looked at me with that silent terror, like when you're sure you just heard your own voice from across the room. We didn't say anything. Not then, but I didn't close my eyes again that day. That night, we got our first loop. It started with Dante. He'd taken the tools out of his truck, started fixing things that weren't broken, the hinges, the screen door, the propane tank valve. He said it was just to be safe. At dinner, he wouldn't sit, kept looking toward the tree line, said the motion light had triggered 4 times already. Leo checked the system, said it must be squirrels. Dante shook his head. That ain't no squirrel, man. Something's watching. Maya tried to lighten the mood, played music, made us all tea. She handed me my mug, and I noticed her eyes were red. She smiled too big, too bright. She said, "Are we still good?" "All of us," Leo answered logically. Dante grunted, but I just nodded, because I didn't trust my voice to sound steady. Something was off, not broken, just rewired, like we'd all been nudged slightly out of alignment. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw the 5th mug again, but now there was a hand wrapped around it. Long fingers, too long, like they'd been waiting to belong. I walked to the kitchen, needed water, but the faucet was running. I hadn't left it on. And there, next to the sink, was Leo's whiteboard. But this time it didn't have diagrams. It had faces, hours, drawn in his style, connected with lines and arrows like a threat map. Each of us had a word next to our name. Leo, control. Maya, guilt. Dante, proof. Me, pattern, underneath it all, in tiny writing. It knows our defaults. I stepped back and heard someone behind me whisper, "Do you know yours?" I turned, nothing. Just darkness. Just the weight of something not quite gone. By the next morning, the fog hadn't lifted. Dante said he'd found boot prints around the cabin. Only, they matched his shoes. Exactly. But he hadn't been outside. Leo stopped speaking for long stretches, just scribbled into his notebook. Maya started apologizing for things no one remembered. And me? I started seeing the 5th person in the corner of my eye. Just standing, watching, mirroring, always a few steps behind, never in focus, never quite there, but always almost. I think we invited it in, not with candles or chants, with intention, with creation. We came to build something together, and something else heard us, something that saw our unity and wanted to break it, piece by piece, trait by trait. We thought we were the sum of our strengths, but something came for our defaults. And the scariest part, it didn't attack us. It waited for each of us to attack ourselves. They say the brain doesn't always process fear with panic. Sometimes it pretends nothing's wrong. Sometimes it makes tea. By Sunday morning, we weren't us anymore. We were fragments, floating in the same space, pretending we still fit. Leo had stopped eating. His notebook was now a wall of equations and crossed-out truths. He kept muttering phrases under his breath. Things like input error, corrupted data, mismatched outcome. Maya slept with headphones on, said the silence was too loud. She'd started crying in the shower, every time. She thought we didn't know, but the tile carried sound. And Dante? He hadn't slept. I heard him outside at 3 a.m., hammering together wooden spikes. He nailed one into a tree with his bare hands. He didn't say what they were for. He didn't have to. That morning, Leo asked me if I'd ever seen a door where there wasn't one before. I asked what he meant. He just stared at the wall behind me. I turned. There was nothing there. But the air felt wrong, like a door had just closed. We didn't work on the project that day. No flow, no brainstorm, no next big thing. Just suspicion. Just long stares when someone left the room. Just quiet footsteps that didn't always match our count. Just 5 toothbrushes in the bathroom. That evening, it happened. Maya screamed from the den. We ran in. Me, Leo, Dante. She was pale, shaking. Said she saw me walk down the hall, even though I was in the kitchen. Said, I watched you pass by twice. Same walk, same hoodie, same exact look. Leo asked if she was sure. Dante looked at me like he didn't know if I'd say yes or no. I laughed. Said she was tired. Maybe a shadow, maybe a reflection. But no one laughed with me. And when I went back to the kitchen, the 5th mug was there again, still warm. That night we tried to sleep in the same room. Safety in numbers, right? But no one could rest. Leo stayed up pacing. Maya whispered apologies to no one. Dante cleaned his knife over and over, the edge so sharp it could split light. And me? I kept checking our shadows on the wall. 4 friends, 4 shadows. But sometimes, only sometimes, there were 5. I started questioning everything. What if it wasn't haunting us? What if it was us? A 5th version, built from the worst in each of us. Fed by fear, born from our faults. Thinkers control, feelers guilt. Sensors need to touch the truth. My obsession with signs. A Frankenstein stitched from our defaults. What if we made it? What if we brought it into being? When we sat around that fire and asked the universe to give us something powerful. What if it answered? Maya said something that night I'll never forget. She looked at all of us and said, I think we're already dead. I think we've been reliving this trip every night for years. She didn't say it dramatically. She said it like a fact, like a line she'd memorized. Leo snapped. Dante stood up. I tried to calm it down, but it was too late. We started arguing, not yelling. That would have been easier. But the kind of arguing that happens with people who know your insides. Quiet, surgical, designed to bleed. You always think you know what's happening. You never show up unless it's your idea. You're always trying to fix us like we're broken. You don't even believe in this. Just in yourself. I don't even remember who said what. All I know is, when I looked down at my mug, it was full again. But I hadn't poured anything. And this time, it wasn't tea. We didn't sleep after that. And by morning, only 3 of us were in the room. We used to joke that if we ever locked ourselves in a cabin for a week, we'd come out millionaires. The dream team, Leo said. Brains, heart, hands, vision. We had it all. And yet, we always left empty-handed. Every time. Ideas drafted, logos mocked, whiteboards filled, potential stacked like firewood, but the fire never lit. At first I thought we were cursed. Now I know better. We weren't cursed. We were mirrored. Each of us trapped in our own loops. Leo, the thinker, couldn't move without a plan. The moment we felt momentum, he'd pause us. Let's make sure it's scalable. What's the ROI? The legal pathway? Brilliant. Precise. but always 5 steps ahead of action. Dante, the censor, would build anything if it made sense in the now. But if the vision reached too far, he'd shut down. We don't have that tool, that budget, that proof. He needed solid ground. But innovation floats. Maya, the feeler, kept us emotionally in tune, but at a cost. If someone doubted, if there was tension, she'd stall the whole machine to protect the vibe. She'd say, let's regroup later, when everyone's back in sync. But later always came too late. And me? I saw it all before it happened. The storyboards, the traction, the launch. But I lived in the clouds. I didn't ground the vision, didn't commit to the boring parts. I was addicted to the spark, but scared of the structure. We had every piece of the machine, but none of us wanted to be the gear. We all wanted to be the engine. And when the tension came, we all defaulted to our loop. Leo got colder, Dante got quieter, Maya got softer, I got louder, and nothing got done. It was the perfect ecosystem of brilliance, sabotaged by ego, not maliciously, not on purpose, but systematically, like some unseen hand pressed rewind every time we got close. A Groundhog Day of greatness on pause, living the same weekend over and over, convincing ourselves we were almost there. And the horror of it wasn't the shapeshifter. It wasn't the fog, the doors that moved, or the shadows with too many hands. The horror was realizing we'd built something beautiful and powerful, and we were the reason it would never leave that cabin. You don't need a demon to haunt a team. Just give them a perfectionist too scared to launch, a realist too afraid to leap, an empath too anxious to offend, a visionary too detached to finish, and let them fall in love with the idea of collaboration instead of the work. We were never in danger of failure. We were in danger of brilliance without courage. The life lesson? Don't just know your type, own it, and more importantly, know how you might destroy the very thing you love if you don't evolve. It's not enough to be the heart, the hands, the brain, or the dream. If you can't get out of your own way, you'll become the fifth trait, the one that watches from the shadows. Wasted potential, unrealized brilliance, always close, never quite there.
Part 5 is the confrontation, but not the type with screaming or running. This is the moment where awareness sharpens, and the intuitive narrator finally faces the fifth face to face, not just as a monster, but as a manifestation of everything they've failed to change within themselves and their friends. This is the part where the story turns into a mirror. Let's go.
It didn't show up with claws. It didn't crawl out of the woods. It didn't snarl. It didn't speak. It just stood there, where Leo used to sit. Same hoodie, same building, same half smile. But it wasn't Leo. It wasn't anyone. It was everyone, fused together in perfect symmetry. Every flaw, every fear, every frozen version of who we could have been if we never moved forward. I stared at it for a long time, longer than fear should have allowed, because I recognized it. I'd felt it in meetings where the best idea never got launched, felt it in text threads that lit up like a fire, then died with no spark. I'd felt it in my own chest, every time I talked about what I could do, and didn't. Every time I waited for the team to be in the right mood, instead of just doing the damn thing. I turned and found the others standing behind me. Leo, Maya, Dante, still alive, still flawed, still real, and for once, none of us had the answer. But we all had the same question: what if we just started anyway? That's the thing about fear. It can't live in action. It only thrives in almost. And the fifth? It only stays alive if you never move forward. We walked out of that cabin with nothing in our hands, but everything ahead of us. And the fifth? It's probably still everywhere waiting for the next brilliant team to pause It walked toward me, didn't blink, didn't breathe, and in its eyes was our entire timeline, not the one we lived, the one we never reached, the TED Talk we never gave, the platform we never launched, the brand that never made it past logo, the product, the people, the purpose. All stillborn in a circle of good intentions. I tried to speak, to say, "You're not real." But it just smiled, that quiet, knowing smile, and whispered, "Neither are you, when you won't finish what you start." That's when I realized the fifth trait wasn't here to kill us. It was here to preserve us, like a museum of unrealized potential. It didn't want us gone. It wanted us paused, stuck in the loop forever. Brilliant, talented, almost there, but never done.